For decades, Lisa Bonet was known as an enigma, a woman who stayed just beyond Hollywood's noise, yet somehow shaped its culture from the margins. But after her separation from Jason Momoa, something unmistakably changed. Not in a way that screamed for attention, but in a way that lingered. Friends sensed it first, then insiders, and eventually the public caught on. This was never a story about heartbreak or collapse, but about release, about stepping out of a life that had grown too tight. What surprised people most was how unsettling that shift felt. Lisa Bonet had never belonged to the spotlight in the traditional sense, and her story didn't begin with fame. It began long before it. Still, her identity is impossible to separate from the moment she entered America's living rooms as a teenager. Born in San Francisco and raised in Los Angeles, she grew up in an affluent, predominantly white neighborhood where she often felt out of place. After her parents divorced, she became an only child, later admitting that isolation quietly shaped who she became. She never felt fully rooted anywhere, and that sense of drifting followed her into adulthood. Acting wasn't a childhood dream so much as a discovery. When a friend invited her to an acting class, Lisa realized, for the first time, that difference could be an advantage. That realization led to a guest role on St. Elsewhere while she was still in school, and soon after, an audition that altered her future. When she was cast as Denise Huxtable, she was just 16 years old. Overnight, she became part of one of the most influential Black families ever shown on television. As The Cosby Show grew into a cultural force, Lisa grew up under constant scrutiny. The series dominated ratings, and Denise Huxtable became both a fashion icon and a symbol of youthful ease. Yet behind the success, Lisa remained uneasy with fame. Producers recognized early that Lisa Bonet would never mold herself to Hollywood. While other young actors embraced TV fame, she quietly pushed back, seeking space beyond expectations. By 18, the gap between her private self and public image was undeniable. On-screen, the dependable sister. Off-screen, restless and aware that fame had come too quickly. Lisa understood an unspoken rule of television. Once you become a symbol, escaping it comes at a cost. That understanding led her to a choice that would permanently redefine her standing in Hollywood. She accepted a role in Angel Heart, a dark, adult film that directly contradicted the image of Denise Huxtable. It was explicit, unsettling, and unapologetically sexual. When the film premiered, the backlash was immediate. The movie's rating was altered after its first cut, and coverage fixated not on the story, but on Lisa's body and the idea that she had betrayed America. Lisa never described the role as rebellion. She explained that television actors were rarely taken seriously in film, and she refused to sacrifice her growth for comfort. When critics accused her of destroying Denise Huxtable, Lisa responded without remorse. She made it clear that her loyalty was to herself and her craft, not to a character frozen in time. The consequences followed swiftly. Around the same time, Lisa was positioned as the lead of A Different World, a spin-off built around her character. The show debuted successfully, but tension simmered behind the scenes. When Lisa became pregnant, the conflict deepened. Some producers wanted to reflect real life by incorporating the pregnancy into the story. The final decision, however, left no room for compromise. The character was not allowed to grow alongside the woman portraying her. Faced with that reality, Lisa walked away from the series she had inspired. Public narratives painted her as difficult, though those inside the production later pointed to her age and the crushing pressure she endured. Barely 20 years old, Lisa Bonet was scrutinized for her choices, her body, her motherhood, and her refusal to comply. This moment marked a shift. Hollywood labeled her unpredictable. Lisa, in turn, saw Hollywood as transactional, and once that truth was clear, there was no returning. What followed was motherhood, separation, and deliberate quiet. Motherhood reshaped everything for Lisa Bonet. When her daughter Zoe was born, her priorities shifted, and her career slowed by choice, not necessity. She focused on presence over productivity, embracing life beyond fame. Her marriage to Lenny Kravitz ended under intense scrutiny, leaving her to quietly rebuild her life around calm rather than spectacle. She moved to Topanga Canyon, raising Zoe close to nature, away from cameras, and even legally changed her name to Lilikoi Moon, a private boundary, not a publicity move. Lisa's life became rooted in yoga, introspection, and intentional living. Acting was never rejected, but visibility was no longer the measure of her worth. When Zoe later lived with her father for a time, Lisa supported the choice, prioritizing truth over comfort. When she eventually returned to the public eye, it was on her terms. The woman who resurfaced was steadier, quieter, and uninterested in justification. Meeting Jason Momoa was quiet, almost accidental, long before fame and red carpets. Their connection grew naturally, built on his openness and her steadiness. They formed a blended family with respect and continuity, eventually marrying in understated alignment rather than spectacle. As Momoa's career accelerated, the pace clashed with the stillness Lisa had cultivated. Their separation wasn't dramatic. It was a private acknowledgement that their lives no longer fit together. Afterward, Lisa chose stillness over spectacle. She reduced public appearances, stepped back from acting, and embraced life on her own terms. Friends described her as lighter, more grounded, and unapologetically present, proof that her quiet evolution was her most powerful transformation. Her beauty routine was simple: natural skincare, minimal makeup, and consistency over correction. But the real transformation was behavioral. Lisa stayed off social media, avoided commentary, and focused on her children, family, and inner circle. Yoga, movement, writing, and time in nature weren't trends. They were decades-long practices that anchored her life. In a culture obsessed with visible reinvention, Lisa's refusal to perform healing was radical. She didn't emerge chasing validation or rewriting her image. She became more herself. Aging, she refused to explain her choices or her absence, prioritizing care over control and alignment over applause. Even her family embraced this philosophy. When her daughter faced invasive speculation about cosmetic work, the response was immediate, honest, and human. Not polished, not defensive. Lisa's message was clear: the body is not a public project. Her transformation wasn't sparked by separation, it was revealed by it. She didn't leave Hollywood in anger, she outgrew it. She didn't abandon love, she redefined it. She didn't become invisible, she became unreachable to narratives that demanded she be something else. That is why her evolution unsettles Hollywood. It offers no drama, only clarity. If you loved learning about the iconic stars of old Hollywood, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe for more behind-the-scenes stories, trivia, and all things vintage glam. Join the conversation in the comments below. Who's your favorite old Hollywood celebrity and why? Make sure to ring the bell so you never miss a new video on the golden era of cinema.